Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Finally, it's time to tee it up and get this football season underway. With us on our game day segment will be the radio play-by-play voice of our Wolverines, Jim Brandstatter. Before he joins us, let's get it rolling as we always do during the season with my view from Section 17. For starters, let's forget about last season. It was a disaster on every level imaginable. As soon as it was over, we knew changes were on the horizon, although I wasn't sure what they would be. What happened was an almost complete reshuffling of the coaching and recruiting staffs. You know the details. We've been talking about them all spring and summer. The fact Jim Harbaugh's contract was extended and he took a big pay cut maybe wasn't expected, but it was a well-thought-out move by Ward Manuel. So what does it all mean? I think it means Jim is fully aware the fan base and everyone else involved with Michigan football is near the boiling point with his program. He gets it. He's a fighter. He said during the winter he would bet on himself. While I'm as disappointed as most of you, I'm not ready to throw the towel in on the Harbaugh era just yet. I like the new young coaching and recruiting staffs. I wish we would have moved in that direction maybe a couple of years ago. I also happen to be an eternal optimist when it comes to Michigan football. Every year when the season begins, over the last 6 years especially, I think to myself, this is the year we begin the road back to competing with the rest of the Big Ten and even, maybe, slaying that dragon in Columbus. We all know it hasn't happened. So with another season opener on the horizon, I am once again optimistic. We have an abundance of talent and could very easily win 8, maybe even 10 games. Will that be enough for our fan base? We'll get the answer to that and many other questions over the next 13 weeks. My guest today says forget about last year. He's not sure what our win-loss total will be this season, but he is sure we will see a much better Michigan team starting this Saturday. The radio play-by-play voice of our Wolverines, Jim Brandstatter, joins us next on our Game Day segment on this our season-opening edition of The Michigan Man. So stay with us. Here with us on our Game Day segment as we get ready for that big opener against Western Michigan is the radio play-by-play voice of our Wolverines, Jim Brandstatter. Jim, great to have you with us today.
Always great to be with you, Mike. Good to be on your podcast. Thanks.
We're just days away from getting another season of Michigan football underway. This year, with fans in the stands, the cutouts are gone. The band's going to be there. Everything that makes a Michigan game day atmosphere great is going to be there, and that will be a beautiful sight to behold, won't it?
I'm telling you what, I guess the fact that it wasn't there makes you appreciate it so much more. And to go through a year like last year with no tailgates, the parking lot empty, nobody in the seats, was just so odd and eerie. I don't ever want to go through that one again. And it goes to show you, Mike, literally what college football, it's about the experience. It's about the game day experience. It's not just the game. The game is, I think, the icing on the cake. The game is the key, but all of the foundational aspects of that day is the driving to the stadium, parking, tailgating, enjoying your friends, enjoying the atmosphere, enjoying the crowd, the band, the whole 9 yards, and then going home that night and having a fulfilled, wonderful, entertaining day.
Yes.
And boy, I tell you what, it'll be great to have that back.
Oh, absolutely. And I know there's going to be 110,000 people that will agree with you as of Saturday. Last year's COVID season was one most of us would like to forget for a lot of reasons. And it seems like most preseason projections, and I might be wrong about this, but they're based in large part on what we saw last year. How much stock should we put in what we saw from Michigan on the field last year?
I really don't think a lot. I mean, let's face it. Look at the defense. It's going to be totally different. I mean, it's the lineup, the coaching staff, all but one, I think, of the defensive staff is brand new. So it's going to be different. So that's really all you've got to go on is what, happened last year when you, especially at the collegiate football, because there's no preseason. You can't judge based on something of a preseason football game like there is in the NFL. But the one thing you can look at is that it's a brand new defense with a whole new kind of schematic look. So it'll be totally different. And when you get to the offensive side of the ball, you look at the key guys that are different coaches there, like the running backs coach. Maybe with Mike Hart, instead of having a running back by committee, you're going to have one guy take a lot of snaps. And I know there was a lot of people who felt that that's what they should have been doing a year ago. There's a brand new offensive line coach. Sharon Moore moves from tight ends into offensive line. Will that improve them? And there's a brand new quarterback coach. And so I think that you look at it, college football to me is so much fun because every year it's like a Christmas morning. You open up that present under the tree. You're not sure what you're going to get. And that's what I love about this year, even more so about Michigan football. So I'm excited about this season.
And you mentioned the changes to the staff. We've been talking about all of the new coaching additions and the youth of the new coaching additions. I think in the spring, we had 10 coaches on the staff under 40 years old. Of course, that's thought to be a real bonus when it comes to recruiting, too, that they can relate to these young players. And do you like the staff makeup of these guys?
Very much. Bo Schembechler used to always say, he says, one of the things you like to do when you have your staff is you get the best staff around you. You get quality coaches, guys that literally have designs to be a head coach themselves, because that means they're going to have the effort. They know that to have the opportunity to be a head coach, they've got to be successful wherever they are. And so that pushes them, and that helps you. That makes your staff better. So I like it. And the youth part that you mentioned, Mike, I think that brings an energy. That brings a relatability, if you will, from the players themselves to the coaches themselves. Hey, Mike Hart is still kind of in the record books, and guys that are playing knew this guy, is Michigan's all-time leading rusher. That's not a secret. So, I mean, he's got some cachet with some of these kids, and I think that's great for a staff. I think Jim Harbaugh's done an outstanding job of pulling this staff together, and they're all working for the same goal. And that's to make Michigan better. And that's what ultimately we're all here about.
Well, last year the staff chose the captains, Jim. This year it was done by a vote of the players. Aiden Hutchinson, Josh Ross, Andrew Vastardis, and Ronnie Bell were given the honor of being this year's captains. If you could, Jim, talk about how important the role of these guys is for the team and what is expected of a captain at Michigan.
Oh, it's vital. Bo Schembechler used to tell us when we would
get into our senior season or any season, he would look at the team in a team meeting. He said, look, in order for us to be successful, men, we have to have our best year of football out of our senior class. And that is where usually you get your captains from. And leadership from the University of Michigan is about, by example, it's about your work ethic. It's about you go about doing your business and you show everybody else that you are the captain of the football team. You're one of the better players of the bunch, and yet you're working just as hard as the second team guy that wants to start. That you're pushing yourself to be better than you are. When everybody on the team knows, hey, this guy's really good. He's a starter. He's a guaranteed. And yet, look at him. He's working hard. If somebody has a complaint or a problem, the captain goes over and says to that young man, hey, what's your problem? You're here playing football with the University of Michigan. And if you're going to complain, go do it somewhere else, because this team will not accept that. That's leadership. And it's about making sure that you are pulling the rest of the guys along with you, but yet you remain one of those guys, that you're part of the team. And I think it's important, too, to transfer the message from a leader that it is about team success. It's not about me individually. It's about going over and patting the guy on the back who's the demonstration squad guy in practice, never gets on the field during a game, but makes a great play in practice. If you're the captain, you go over and say, hey, great job, man. You're giving us a great look. You're going to play soon. You keep this up. That's leadership. That makes everybody on the team feel a part of it. And that's what captains do and what they're expected to do.
Fans are excited, though, Jim, like the players, to get the season started. And, of course, who is taking the snaps under center generates most of the interest. Young Cade McNamara was named starter in the spring, and from all reports, at least to this point, he is the guy we will see Saturday.
Yeah, and I think the reason is because he makes great decisions. He is, what do I want to say, maybe not, the quote-unquote physically most gifted of the guys, but he's, got all of the necessary abilities with the arm talent, and with his feet, the ability to move, throw on the run, all the footwork, all those, technical things. But he also does a great job between his ears.
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of those guys you can count on. He's one of those guys you feel comfortable. It's like, I like to say, a quarterback's like that guy, that punt return guy, that when that ball goes up and it's windy and it's spiraling, it's knuckling down, as a coach, you stand there and go, don't worry, that guy's going to make that catch. And he does. That's the quarterback. You have confidence in him to know that as the field general, you're standing on the sideline, you look in there and you signal in a play. That quarterback turns, looks, sees the play, walks into the huddle, gets that information to every player, gets to the line of scrimmage, is in control, and gets you into the right play, and gets the other guys their great opportunity to shine. And I think that's the quarterback's job. And I think Cade, having a year experience, has kind of solidified that position because of those traits.
Well, Jim, let's talk about your old position group, the offensive line. Some say not a lot of experience up front, but there sure is a bunch of talent, isn't there?
Yeah, and I disagree with the experience part of it. Andrew Stuber is going to be one of the starters. Ryan Hayes is going to be one of the starters at tackle, right? Those guys have played a lot. Stuber actually was supposed to be a starter 2 years ago when Jalen Mayfield was the right tackle. Jalen Mayfield went on to play in the NFL, and Andrew, the only reason he didn't start because he got hurt. And then he came back, played guard. Now he's back out at tackle. The Stardust is a sixth-year guy who has played guard and center. Trevor Keegan has played last year. Carson Barnhart has played last year. He started last year when Hayes got hurt, and he's a backup.
Mm-hmm.
He can play guard and tackle. So I think that the experience thing is a little overblown, and they got guys in there that are working together, that have worked together for a full year and a spring. And I think the new line coach, Sharon Moore, is really doing a nice job of, again, coordinating with Josh Gaddis, the offensive coordinator. They want to run the ball a little bit more, and and I think these guys are going to take real pride in creating a running game and a more physical group up front than maybe they've had in the past or the reputation they've had in the past. So I kind of like where they're going. And I don't worry about the inexperienced thing at all, because I think all of them have played enough. They know what they're doing, and they can play different positions.
I'm very excited about that group and the depth we have on the offensive line, and very excited about the guys behind them. Mike Hart has had high praise for his running backs in camp. Hassan Haskins, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, and I think fans are excited about them too. Probably as deep and talented a trio as we've had in a while, Jim.
I think so. And I think, too, again, going back to what I said earlier, I'm not sure that you're going to see three guys get a lot of snaps. I really don't. I think you're going to see Haskins as a starter probably get, if they run the ball a lot, he might get 16 to 18, 20 a game. And that hasn't happened the last few years. Corum, I think, is pushing him, because Corum last year as a true freshman was a true freshman. Mm-hmm. He has done an unbelievable job putting on weight and physically maturing. He was considered a real scat back, kind of a get wide back that could really run. Now he's got some meat to the bone, and I mean, he can now power people, but he's still got that speed. So, and Donovan Edwards is this true freshman. He's truly an unpolished diamond. But I agree, the great depth over there. And the other place there's great depth, I don't know whether you were going there next, is the wide receiver room.
Yes.
The receivers room, to me, is, I think, from top to bottom, a lot of these guys that start on other rosters. And there's 6 or 7 of them that out there that I think could be big contributors.
And they're led by Ronnie Bell, who's also one of the captains, and all of us expect him to have a big year. I just love Ronnie Bell.
Oh, I do too. And that's why he was named captain. Remember Ronnie last year dropped that ball against Penn State, or 2 years ago.
2 years, yeah.
It was just awful. He took a lot of heat for it. Ronnie Bell not only recovered from that, became stronger. I mean, that's the kind of guy you want. But behind him, you got Mike Sainristle. Not behind him. These guys are going to play. Sainristle, Cornelius Johnson, who in my opinion could be the next Nico Collins. A.J. Henning, Roman Wilson. Don't forget this other kid. There's a youngster by the name of Dalen Baldwin, who's a transfer in the portal. He's a really big-time player. And 2 true freshmen, Dixon and Anthony. I just mentioned 8 guys. and all of them, I'm telling you, are good enough to play. So I'm very excited about the wide receivers room.
What about over at the tight end group?
They moved Joe Honingford over there. He was an offensive lineman. A guard, and he's lost a lot of weight, and he's actually now a tight end, and he looks pretty good. Plus, Eric All is probably going to be the starter. He is, he's another one with unlimited potential. Great size. He's from Ohio. He's a junior. He had some trouble catching footballs last year, but I'm telling you what, he's. You look at him, you say, man, that's a tight end. And Luke Schoonmaker's behind him. They're fine at tight end position. And I think all can be that special tight end, combination blocker receiver that really puts pressure on a defense.
I think we are all excited about the amount of talent that we have on the offensive side of the ball. I just, I know the preseason magazines and the analysts are waiting to see it on the field, but the potential there is amazing. Over on the defensive side, Mike Mcdonald, the new defensive coordinator, we've heard a lot about him. Young guy. Fans are excited to see what changes he brings. He has some work to do on that defense, though, doesn't he, Jim?
He does. And it's a lot of it, it's schematic stuff. I mean, you're not going to see the man-to-man coverage as much. There's going to be more zone in the secondary. But it's going to be like what the Baltimore Ravens run in the NFL, and it's kind of a hybrid 3-4, 5-2. I mean, when you look at who's going to play, it depends upon what the defense or what the offense does. If they're going to be 3 down linemen and 2 outside backers that they don't call outside backers. They call them edge players. That'll be Hutchinson and Ojabo. And down inside, you've got, 6, 7 guys that'll rotate around, and you're not sure where they'll be. They'll be nose guards. They'll be spread out outside the guards on offense, 2-man front. Mozzie Smith, Chris Hinton, Donovan Jeter, Jules Welshaw, Jess Spate. Some of these guys are going to be rotating around in there. So I think it's going to be fun to watch the defense more than anything, because you don't know right off about the traditional, defensive schematics that you think of, a 4-3, a 3-4, a 5-2. That stuff doesn't exist there. It's going to be a hybrid mix of all of that, and it's about getting the personnel in the right spots to be as successful as they can. I'm looking forward to the defense. And the best part, though, Mike, is that they've got athletes and players that can fill those positions. And that's what you need when you change a defense, because sometimes you don't have this player or that player or the type of physical ability that this player needs to play that position. Michigan's got those guys.
Well, overall, Jim, when you look at that defense, are you optimistic about them being better, or do you still think it's going to take time?
I'm optimistic about them being better. I think they've got a chip on their shoulder. I think they gave up a lot of points. I think they gave up some stuff on defense last year they're not happy with. They're embarrassed about. That carries with them. Even though there are new schematics, it's the same guys playing. And it's the same guys that gave up points that they felt they shouldn't have. I really like our secondary, our safeties. I mean, Dax Hill's the real deal, okay? Mm-hmm. And Brad Hawkins is bigger, and he's a leader back there. And our corners with DJ Turner, Jamon Green, and Vincent Gray, the three of them, I think are going to be better. And again, I think it's all part of that whole thing about, even though the scheme's different, these are the same guys that play defense, it's still in their mind. That some people put up some points on them last year that they didn't like. Whether it was the scheme, whatever it was, they still were out there when it happened. So when they come in this year, I think there's a little bigger chip on their shoulders. It's like, hey, we weren't the Michigan defense we were supposed to be. We are now, and let's prove it. And I think that's what you're going to see from this group.
Well, this Saturday, Coach Tim Lester and the Broncos pay a visit to the Big House for the long-anticipated opener. Yeah, they're a MAC team. I hear that from fans all the time. But, hey, these guys are no walkover. This offense will be more than a good test for Mike Mcdonald's defense, won't it?
There's no question. And that's the beauty of it. I think the kids that play at Michigan know that. I mean, they know, hey, look, this is a brand new deal. We got a brand new group of coaches. We can't just go out there and think that we got this done. We got to prove it. And I don't think the opponent matters. I mean, clearly everybody's anticipating game 2 with the Washington Huskies. It's a night game and all the trappings that go along with a primetime game. But the fact of the matter is that opener is going to matter. And it's going to matter because they're going to play against somebody with a different colored jersey for the first time. And it's the first time that they have played since last year, which is a disaster for them. And they want to take that bad taste out of their mouth and change the feeling. And the way to do that is to win. That's what I think, Western Michigan's going to run into when they show up.
The focus for me, at least in that opener, is we saw the defense last year. We saw the corners really struggle. Yes, schematically things are going to be changing. But, man, they bring in some big receivers that are going to test us. Sky Moore, Jalen Hill. They're the real deal.
No, they're the real deal. They were, what 3 points away from winning their division last year in the MAC.
Yeah. And
so, they're for real, and Lester's the real deal as a coach. They're going to have to play well. And big receivers, they're going to, and then that's the beauty of it. Michigan's going to see the same thing all season long. Big receivers, mostly a spread offense. And you're going to see a lot of nickel. You're going to see 5 defensive backs in the game a lot. But you also, in a situation like that, you got to rush the quarterback. You got to do all those things that are necessary to take those big receivers you were mentioning, take them away. How do you take them away? You don't give the quarterback time to throw. You give him a different look every snap so that when he walks to the line of scrimmage, he's not sure where his go-to number 1 receiver is. And when that receiver catches the ball, you want to make sure that receiver does nothing after he catches it. Those are all things going through Michigan's, defensively right now. And offensively, it's the same thing. You've got to dominate the line of scrimmage. Last year, they didn't do that a lot. This all goes together about, how do you get better? How as a team do you play better? And they know there are certain things they got to run the ball better. They got to protect the quarterback better. And you start by doing it in game 1. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the message Harbaugh's been sending them all fall and all spring.
Final question before we let you get away, Jim. We've had a lot of change, which we've talked about, and we know in the offseason. And, to say the fan base is antsy, I guess, would be an understatement. It's year 7 of the Harbaugh era, beginning on Saturday. To me, very big opener for a lot of reasons for Jim and the team, especially, though, to give a young team confidence. We really need that badly to get started on the right foot, don't we?
I couldn't agree more. But I also know that the way you approach these things, you can't look at it's year 7 of Jim Harbaugh, but I know it worked in '97. Lloyd Carr got his team to focus on one game at a time. It's the old story.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, we don't have to make a return by thinking, what are we going to do this year? Our return starts with, what are we going to do this snap? What are we going to do this quarter? What are we going to do this half? What are we going to do this game? That's where you have to focus and get your guys to focus. And if you do that, at the end of the day, you go in the locker room, you sit down and you go, okay, we accomplished that. That is that opening snap against Washington, and the first quarter, and the first half, and then the third quarter, and then the game. And then you come out of there, sit in the locker room, think the same thing. That's how I approach it. I think that's how you have to approach it, especially when you're coming off a year that wasn't what you expected. You can't try to – it's the old story. You can't try to make up 20 points in one possession.
Mm-hmm.
You do it snap by snap by snap. And if you can focus and get better every snap you take, at the end of the day, you'll wind up on top.
Well, here with us on our game day segment this week as we are getting ready for the big opener against Western Michigan on Saturday is the outstanding radio play-by-play voice of our Wolverines, Jim Brandstatter. Jim, as we mentioned at the top, it's just going to be incredible to have life back to normal on Saturday in the Big House and everything that goes with it. And we look forward to tuning you in. Thank you for being so generous with your time, and we look forward to having you back later in the season.
Mike, it's my pleasure to be with you on the Michigan Man Podcast anytime. You know that.
On Quick Hits today, every week we'll bring you injury updates if Jim and the staff share them ahead of time. As you well know, that really hasn't happened much during his 6 years here. We usually find out who is hurt and won't play on game day with the rest of you. That's just the way it is. So as of now, when we are recording the show, we have no injuries of significance to share with you, which is also good to start the season. As most of you know, we bring you 2 shows each week during the season. Michigan Game Day show with one of our writers or radio personalities on Tuesday. This week, of course, we had Jim Brandstatter. Then our visitors segment on Thursday with a writer or play-by-play person from our opponent that week. So this Thursday, we will be joined by the longtime radio play-by-play voice of the Broncos, Robin Hook. So make sure you join us for that. I'll also have the latest weather update for the opener Saturday and some interesting game day facts to share with you. But isn't it great we have football season back? It just seems like it has been forever. I know there are many questions surrounding this team as the season begins, and this Saturday, in the Big House, we will get our first taste of how the off-season changes have impacted the program. And I, for one, like you, can't wait. That will do it for our Michigan Game Day show, the first of the season. Remember to join us on Thursday for our Visitors Edition, again with Broncos radio play-by-play voice Robin Hook. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go Blue.
Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!